Bonjour drummers, it's Rob Linton here from drumstheword.com. Welcome to this free mini song lesson where today I'm going to show you the best parts, the main parts of the song Waterfront by Simple Minds, drummed by Mel Gaynor of course. And I've got 2 pages of PDF transcriptions for you that you can download from my website for free. You'll find a link beneath this video. So have these 2 sheets printed out in front of you as we go through this lesson. It's going to make things a lot clearer for you to understand. This song was just over on my Facebook page. And so if you want to make your own song suggestions, then you can go over there to do so. Again, you'll find a link beneath this video. And also you could perhaps type some suggestions down in the YouTube comments. I can't guarantee anything, but I'm always interested to hear new and interesting ideas. This song is really for the intermediate drummer, how we're hearing it on the recording, but I want to make this a beginner lesson because I think this stuff can be simplified. And as we go through this lesson, I'm going to show you how you can take what's on the recording. I'll show you how to play that. But then also how you can simplify it, because I think this is accessible to the new or beginner drummer. It'd be a shame just for a couple of bits to make it really difficult, or more difficult than it really should be. So let's take a look at the first drum beat, and we got where the drums come in at 7 seconds after that really cool bass. Dum 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 dum. That rhythm, by the way, is what you want to be feeling throughout the song. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. We're playing a shuffled rhythm where we're playing the first and the third note of the triplets. 1 2 3 1 2 3, but we're emphasizing the 1 and the 3. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. That's what gives that shuffle rhythm. It's based in triplets. We don't have to count all 3 notes. When we're not counting all 3 notes, I just recommend you count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and that's what I've written up on the chart unless something else occurs. So just be aware that the first drum you hear is on the snare drum, and it comes in on beat 4. So if you sort of count along to the bass at the beginning, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, Mel comes in on 7 seconds with the snare drum on beat 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now on the recording, it's just a single snare drum note with a load of reverb added to make it sound huge, but when he plays it live, he plays flams. So you could choose to play either. I've shown you what's on the recording, but if you watch him play it live, he plays 1 and 2 and 3, 4, where he's playing the backbeats that we'll see in a second as flams on the snare drum. So feel free to do that if you want to. So anyway, back to the beginning. We come in on beat 4, and we got these 2 crash cymbal notes on the and of 4 and beat 1. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And both those crash cymbals come down with a bass drum, and 1. Then we go into beat the second bar, 1 and 2 and 3. We get 1 and 2 and 3, but that and of 2 there after that snare drum is a crash cymbal on the upbeat of beat 2. 1 and 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 3. Then into the next bar, or the next part of the bar, 4 and 1, simple as that. And then for the last bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And he does those 2 crash cymbals again at the end of that last bar. 4 and 1. So when you loop it round, you're actually looping the second and third bar of that notation. That first bar is just the intro. So we get 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then it loops back to bar 2. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1. So as far as simplifying it goes, there's several ways you could do this. First of all, you could just play the 1 crash cymbal with your right hand, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. That's probably going to be a little bit easier for most drummers, 4 and 1. And then, for those upbeat crash cymbals on the and of beat 2, instead of playing and 3, which I think some drummers would find difficult, striking the crash with the first offbeat triplet note, the and of 2, and then come down with the second bass drum on its own, you could just play the bass drum on the and of 2 and leave out the bass drum on beat 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1. Finally, of course, you could take out all the shuffle notes on the bass drum and just play 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1 accidentally played an extra shuffle note there, but you could take parts out. If you find that those two bass drum notes difficult to play together, and I think for the beginner drummer, it shouldn't be too tricky to play those two notes at that tempo. That's all you're doing. I think the tricky bit is lining up those crash cymbals with those bass drum notes and feeling a nice solid shuffle rhythm, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So before we go on to the next example, let's just hear what the actual recorded version up to speed a few times so you can hear it without me waffling on over the top. Here we go. So this next example occurs at 40 seconds, and it's really, really very simple, but the only reason I wanted to show you it was because of bar 1, where Mel isn't playing those shuffle notes every single time. We just talked about that a second ago with the previous example where you could leave out the ands, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and just play that. Well, he does sometimes play that. So that first bar at 40 seconds, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then he goes back to the shuffle, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So I just wanted to include that just to show you that he does actually play just single bass drum notes occasionally. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Wanted to play the upbeat crash cymbal there. So just for complete sake, let's just hear those two bars up to speed. So then at 1 minute 54, we start to get a lot more shuffled bass drums. They're very low in the mix. You might be forgiven if you missed them. But Mel was starting to play, if we take a look at that first bar and leave the crash cymbal off at the end on the and of 4, we're getting this 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. All those notes are being played somewhere on the kit. So of course, simplifying that, just take out those extra shuffle notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. If you just wanted to play that all the way through the song, then that's going to work just as well. Again, the bass drums are low in the mix, and when you hear Mel play it live, he does kind of just play that through most of the song. You don't really hear him play very often in multiple bars. I think it's a little bit too busy, but on the recording, that's nice and low in the mix, and so it blends into the background. So going back to the first bar, we get 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Offbeat crash cymbal on the and of 4. All the variations and options we talked about previously can be applied to that. Second bar, nice and simple. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1. So he doesn't play the shuffle, those duh, 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 duh every time. That second bar is nice and simple. Then bar 3 is exactly the same as bar 1, except instead of a crash cymbal on the and of beat 4, it's an open hi-hat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 1. Now, of course, just leave out the hi-hats if you find that multiple independence too difficult. You're coming down with a bass drum, the hi-hat's opening. You're coming down with the next bass drum, the hi-hat's closing. You could replace it with a crash instead, or just leave it out completely. But on the recording, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Then on to the next line, bar 4 is just 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then in the last bar we get this triplet drum fill. 1 and 2 and then starting on beat 3, and this is the sticking that Mel uses, we'll talk about a variation in a second, we're playing 3 and, so the shuffle 3 and 4, straight after on beat 4 with the snare drum with the left hand. 3 and 4, so I'm going down the toms there. 3 and 4, and then straight after that beat 4, 4 triplet, all 3 notes of that triplet are played. 4 triplet, and Mel uses the sticking left, right, right. Well, that's certainly what I saw him play live once at least. He's got a fast right hand, so he's able to play. But to simplify it, and this is how I would probably play it, I'd play left, right, left, crash. Just makes a lot more sense. You're not overusing one hand, although it's not so fast this song that you couldn't. So that fourth bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 triplet 1. See, I counted the full triplet there, 4 triplets. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 triplet 1. So if you wanted to simplify that, then perhaps just leave out the snare drum. But if you listen closely on the recording, you can hear that snare drum still being placed in there. I think it's quite cool as well because the backbeat's maintained. So that's probably one of the hardest drum fills in there. Well, the next one perhaps a little bit harder. But because we've got a gap there with the hands, it kind of makes it a little bit more difficult. Anyway, let's hear those 5 bars up to speed. So then at 3 minutes 4, we got the big mama, the big drum fill. First bar is just leading into it. I like to do this where you put the drum fill in context with the drum beat before it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 ands. And then we've got this really cool idea where we're filling in all the triplet notes, but we're playing groups of 2. We're playing a flam followed by a bass drum, a flam followed by a bass drum, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. We're just going through the triplets in that sort of interesting way, playing groups of 2, which makes it sound kind of weird because triplets are groups of 3. And if we split them up into 2s, they sort of go across the beat in a cool way. All we're doing is starting on the snare drum. Mel's got lots of drums. I think he uses 4 toms in this drum fill. We get 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplets. And then the drum fill ends with 4, and for this first time he doesn't play a flam there on the lowest tom, but you could if you wanted to. He just plays a single note, I think. 4 triplets 1, 4 triplets 1. That's sticking us just use right, left, right. Just means your hands are coming up nicely. It feels smooth. So that is quite a tricky drum fill to be able to play in time. And if you listen to it on the recording at 3 minute 04, I swear he kind of slips up at the end. It sounds like he's a little bit out of time with himself. Almost a minor mistake, like he hesitated on the last note. The second time he plays it, as we see, well, I haven't included it, but he does play it a second time later in the song. He plays the flam that time at the last note, and it does sound a lot smoother. So I have a feeling like we might have spotted Mel having a little slip up there. Not that anyone really cares. So 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1. Just a long flow of notes. So there's no real way you can simplify that. It's quite a hard drum fill. First of all, you could just play it as single notes. And perhaps leave out and just play. So you're playing the middle note of triplet on beat 4. And that crash cymbal there is on beat 1 of the next bar. You're not having to do the 2 crash cymbals. It means you don't have to rush up with your left hand to play a crash. So you could play. By the way, if you've only got 2 toms or 3 toms, then you're going to have to work out yourself how you want to split those notes up. Perhaps you could play, if you've just got 3 toms, well, I used the snare drum twice there, but you see what I mean? You could sort of work out how you're going to get round the kit by playing more notes on 1 or 2 or multiple toms. So let me now play that for you up to speed. So on to page 2, and at 3 minute 58. We get 2 ideas being used. The first one is in the first bar where that crash cymbal on the and of 4 is being emphasised by a big floor tom. You could use your lowest tom. I'm going to use this tom instead. We get the shuffle bass drum pattern going in here. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So I use left right. You could do, well, both hands. You could do that or that. It doesn't matter what combination you use. Whatever feels comfortable for you. I like that. My left hand is just moving to there rather than having to go up to the crash cymbal. So we get 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 1. Notice we've got all 3 limbs there playing the and of 4 and 1. If you wanted to, you could play and 1. So just leave out the bass drum on the and of beat 4 there if you're finding lining up the limbs tricky. Or of course you could just leave out that floor tom note and just play what we had before. If you're playing onto the recording, that will work just as well. It just so happens that he starts to emphasise those notes during this part of the song. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. That was that first bar looped a couple of times. Bar 2 goes back to our simpler pattern. Bar 3 on the next line is the same as bar 1. But, and this is the tricky bit, and this is certainly something you can leave out if you're a completely new beginner. Don't worry about this drum fill. It only happens once in the song. You might have missed it because it's low in the mix as well. But we get one trip. So that middle note of the triplet there, one triplet, is being played on either tom. It doesn't matter. I use this tom in front of me. You could use your higher tom if you wanted to. One triplet, 2. One triplet, 2 and 3, 4 and 1. So it creates this kind of jolt because you've gone from the and one trip and one triplet, 2. So quite hard to count if you're not used to it. Certainly leave out that middle note on the medium tom if you find this too difficult. But let me just loop round bars 3 and 4 a couple of times. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 triplet, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 triplet, 2 and 3, 4 and 1. Kind of weird that thing kind of effect. So definitely leave that out, that drum fill, if you find that too difficult. Anyway, let me play for you those 4 bars up to speed. So then at 4 minutes 42, we get the end of the song, the drum fill at the end. It starts very simply with 1, 2, and then coming up to your highest tom, it's just simply 6 notes, 2, 2, 2, 3 triplet, 4 triplets. And then he goes into snare and crash on beat 1, 1 with a choke afterwards. You could use the open hi-hat instead, but I think it's a choke crash cymbal. And it's cut on the recording to make it sound really sudden. Now that can be quite tricky because what you have to do, or what Mel does, is he uses this sticking. Right, left, right, right, which means his left hand is ready over the snare drum, right, those last 2 triplet notes, to then play the snare and crash together. And you go for a choke. So that's what he's playing on the recording. 1, 2, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1. But if you want to simplify that, you could just leave out the snare drum on 1 and just play it with the bass drum instead. That'll work just as well. And if you don't want to use the choke crash cymbal, you could just do the open hi-hat bark. Or, of course, you could just leave out the choke totally. Or however you want. So just play around with that, find out what you feel comfortable with. But before we finish, let me just play that up to speed a couple of times for you. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. If you've got any questions, feel free to email me, rob@drumstotheword.com. Don't forget to download both pages to the PDF from my website. Again, you'll find the link beneath this video. And then while you're at my website, you might want to consider signing up to become an online member. And what I currently offer for $97 is a full year's online access to every single full video song lesson I've ever recorded and transcribed. And that's coming up to almost 500 full song lessons, where, unlike this lesson, I teach you every single bar from start to finish. You get the fully transcribed PDF drum chart. And like I said, I've got almost 500 full song lessons up on the website already, including at least a couple of other Simple Minds lessons. And I'm sure I'll be adding more in the future. As a thank you for signing up, I give you access to hundreds of little videos teaching you many famous drum beats, fills, and even drum solos. I give you 3 ebooks written over the years containing hundreds more famous beats, fills, and solos. And then over the year of your subscription, you also gain instant online access to all the new material that I upload for my members. And I record new lessons every week unless I'm ill or on holiday. So you've got lots of cool stuff to look forward to over the year of your subscription. But if you've got any questions about any of that, then feel free to email me, rob@drumstotheword.com. And until our next drum lesson together, toodle pip and happy drumming to you!